write like a man. Use a typewriter.
I have a question for you. So, I've heard the phrase Nephilim culture several times. And I wanted to ask you, what is Nephilim culture and how is it being propagated on us in light of current global events?
Yeah, so Nephilim culture is imagine Sodom and Gomorrah, and this would be Rephaim culture after the flood, but the Gnostics look at Gomorrah as the seed of Nephilim creation before the flood, and Sodom as the location after the flood where the giants are recreated after the flood. And that Sodom and Gomorrah, as with all of the cities of the plain, or most fortified city-state fortresses, were built on a hill, like on a ground, right? And they were called cities of light, shining cities of light. And to them, Sodom was a shining city of light that had burgeoning knowledge, had giants, it had polytheist doctrine roaming that included everything that we understand from a Christian thing that's probably not quite right, that would be going on throughout that sort of culture. It would have had sacrifices. It would have been on steroids, and you would have had at the beginning the Baalim in Sodom walking amongst them, because Baal is thought to be the parent of the Raphaim or the Rapayu as they're depicted in the Ugaritic text, right? And so just as it was before the flood, this is a culture that's Atlantis, which would be that shining empire that they want to recreate in the end time, where you had all of this unbridled development of knowledge, this polytheist, liberal, religious sort of understanding. Unless you don't believe in the pantheon, then they're not tolerant of you. If you don't believe in their religious doctrines, then they're not going to be tolerant of you. And that there's this understanding of this interaction with the gods, or as in the alien mythos with the ancient aliens, that was part of that daily sort of basis. So all of the horrors that you can imagine from Sodom and Gomorrah as an example after the flood, and from Atlantis and any other of those civilizations that's depicted in Lord of the Rings, or I'm trying to think of that show that was on that was really, really popular and was antediluvian based, and this was the different War of the Kingdoms and stuff like that.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah. With that,
okay.
That would be that type of culture that they're talking about. And it's important to keep that in context with one of the overarching signs to the end time that Jesus provides, that it's going to be like the days of Noah.
Yeah.
And those are the exact same words that are used in Genesis 9:29 to describe the life of Noah, the days of Noah, which was 600 years before the flood, when you had all of this antediluvian things going on that caused the flood, and 350 years after the flood that included the Rephaim, the recreation and the creation of Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities of the plain after the flood.
Man, I learned so much every time we talk to Gary.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Jeez.
Thank God for the replay, because every time it's like, okay, because Nick goes through.
It's so dense.
Nick
so
does a really good job at dissecting all of these into individual segments. So it's always fun. Like, these are my favorite ones to go back and rewatch at the computer when I have time to Google and just go off on the journey. You know,
I have a question.
Cool.
You said something really interesting about ancient aliens. Do you anticipate some sort of, in light of what's happening currently globally, do you anticipate there's going to be some sort of formal disclosure happening within the next year or two? Are they coming to save us from ourselves? You know, what are your thoughts on that in light of what's currently going on?
There will definitely be a disclosure. It's just a matter of how nuanced and complicated and deceiving that it's going to be. So they have to create a scenario where they can create a plausible cover story and disguise for where the fallen angels are coming from. Right? And the fallen angels, we know they can have a changeling capability, so because they can take the form of a man and they can take a form of any gender that they want, but that's not the whole sort of group of aliens that we need to be concerned with. I think they're part of it, and they could certainly represent a number of different kinds, but that presents a plausible technological answer to the age that we're in as to where they come from. Now, if you have giants that have survived, right, whether or not they're seen as the white elves in the Lord of the Rings or the Tuatha De Danann, which is the same sort of representation, whether they're not fully as they show up as large as the ancient ones or not, there's going to be probably creatures like them that show up in the end time, and they need to be sort of fitting into this universal sort of Babylon, as in that science fiction show about Babylon and the aliens, and there's going to be this galactic table of these aliens that we're going to be asked to have a chair at the table at, but we're going to have to fight for it. So where do these other sort of aliens might come from? I think it's the creations of the fallen angels, like on that sort of understanding of the greater Nephilim concept. So you have the little people, right? You have, so like the gray aliens, well, where would they fit in? Well, they're identical in descriptions to the gray gnomes who look after genealogies and technology for the demigods, and have flying machines that come through portals, fairy shays, fairy mounds, just like aliens do. And they kidnap people and they do sexual experimentations on them. They send them back without memories, and they're trying to renew their genome and the ability to be able to reproduce. And there's three groups of the little people. Like there's ones that make the weapons, like as in the Lord of the Rings, you have the dwarves that lived in the earth and they make the weapons for. And you have, good-looking ones, and you have mischievous ones like the leprechauns. You also have another group, that's the fourth group, that's called the salamanders, which is a reptilian group, which are larger than the little people. And then you have what happened to the Nakash. Did they save any of those serpents that were walking, talking, intelligent beings before all of that was taken away for deceiving Eve? And did they take them off-world or in another dimension through a portal or whatever? So I think we need to understand that they created a lot of different creatures before the flood, probably recreated a number of those after the flood, and that they're going to show up as being advanced beings that are in, like, Star Wars. I think it was Babylon 5 was that show that I was talking about, right?
I used to
and
watch
that good
it all the
versus
time.
evil aspect
There were the
of
shadows,
the dualism.
and it's like Valerians or something. The ones in the encounter.
They were like the angels as we would know them,
yes.
right? And
He
then there
came
was
out and
this
he looked
dualism
all
fight between
white.
the same
dualism, light versus dark, yin and yang. It's the same story over and over again.
And in the Star Wars version, this is the war that they want humankind to fight for, to win freedom away from the dark force of the world, or what's allegorized in Doctor Strange, where they're fighting the Dark Lord of the universe, and they want to win the Earth as that separate realm to be away from that Dark Lord, and they need to fight a battle to win that. And so they need to be able to make this case that we're one amongst many that are fighting the evil God of the Bible.
Oh yeah, I've heard that theory before. Yeah, which is actually pretty common in like layman occultism.
So roll that forward to these beings released in Revelation 9, sometime before the midpoint of the last 7 years. And you have the worst of the demons coming out from the sides of the abyss, and then you have the fallen angels that were the worst of the fallen angels and the impassioned ones that are coming out. And then you have them uniting with all the angels that weren't in the abyss. And you're going to have this war in heaven that's described in Revelation 12 and Daniel 8. And some of those starry hosts from the loyal angels are actually going to be thrown to the earth and trampled on, as the Daniel account provides for us.
Interesting.
And this is going to be, will we see the war part that happens in another dimension where heaven is, where God lives? Probably not. Maybe, but probably not, because heaven is defined biblically as 3 different places. One's inside the firmament, so from the sun in, as I would understand that, and then outside the firmament, which is the rest of the universe, and then there's the place where God lives.
Yeah.
Right. And so
are you saying that there are some
sure.
angels that haven't fallen yet that will fall?
Well, there might be. We don't know. What we do know is by Revelation 12, fully 1/3 will have rebelled, right? And that's going to be at least 33 million. So, because there's 10,000 times 10,000, which is 100 million, could be an allegorical number, but it's going to be a large number of fallen angels. Not all of them are in the abyss. Only the worst of the ones went there. So there's still angels that are outside, and that they could be the ones who would recreate the Nephilim and the Rephaim in the end time, because they know their time is short. So we may not see the war part in heaven, but as they're cast down and as they're being chased down by the loyal angels led by Michael, we could see that war above our our skies and in the space just outside the earth. And that would be very, very similar to probably the wars that are depicted in the Rig Vedas, with all of these powerful weapons and things that happen in the skies that they wrote down in their religious history. And I think that might have been reflecting the first war, the first rebellion, right?
Yeah.
And that the fallen angels lost. And so they're going to be with us from there on. But I think we're going to see, and they're going to need a cover story for what we're seeing above us if we're going to see any of that war. And then these ones that they capture, they're going to need a cover story for that as well.
Yeah, that's been the big debate in the non-Christian sort of New Age panspermia kind of community. The alien community is that, like, there are the Pleiadians, the good aliens, and then there are the grays, or the ones from what is it? There's some sort of draconic star that so they've already laid the groundwork. But as Nick and I attest, all aliens are demons.
That's right.
Who cares,
there are no
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah,
They're all going to be, but they've laid that masquerading groundwork already. That there's going to be some sort of cosmic battle over the soul and fate of humanity, and it's just like, whatever. No, it's not. It's not gonna. It's not. If you're telling me it's aliens, I'm not buying it.
I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out. Yeah,
I'm out.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Gary Wayne and I are gonna be in a cave somewhere.